بيان حكم القتال الذي حصل بين الإمام علي ومعاوية. Clarification of the judgments of the fighting that took place between Imam Ali and Muawiyah. وأن معاوية ومن معه بغوا, and that Muawiyah and who was with him transgressed. And we are here. وقال ملا علي القاري في شرح المشكاه. Mula Ali al-Qari, Sheikh Mula Ali al-Qari, he said in the explanation of Al-Mishkah, Ma Nasuhu, quote. So this is Mula Ali al-Qari, that's not Sheikh Abdullah. What does he say? تقتله الفئة الباغية. He wants to explain the hadith. The transgressing group shall kill him. أي الجماعة الخارجة على إمام الوقت وخليفة الزمان. Meaning, the group that is against the Imam of the time, the acting caliph or the present caliph. قال الطيبي, الطيبي said, ترحم عليه بسبب الشدة التي يقع فيها عمار من قبل الفئة الباغية. In this hadith, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is having pity on Ammar, because he says, Wayha Ammar, woe is Ammar. تقتله الفئة الباغية. The transgressing group shall kill him. ترحم عليه. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam was having pity on him. بسبب الشدة التي يقع فيها عمار. Because of the difficulty that Ammar will fall into. من قبل الفئة الباغية. On the part of the transgressing group. يريد به معاوية وقومه. And the Prophet means Muawiyah and his people. The Prophet means. Yuridu an-Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam. He's explaining the hadith. You're saying here, the Prophet means by this hadith Muawiyah and his people. What that means is, this hadith applies to them. The Prophet said what he said, and this hadith applies to them. فَإِنَّهُ قُتِلَ يَوْمَ صِفِّينَ. For indeed, that's proven by the fact that Ammar was killed on the day of Siffin. وقال ابن الملك. Ibn al-Malik said, اعلم أن عمارا قتله معاوية وفئته. He said, know that Ammar, Muawiyah and his group killed him. فكانوا طاغين باغين بهذا الحديث. And so they were violators and transgressors by virtue of this hadith. لأن عمارا كان في عسكر علي. Because Ammar was in Ali's army. وهو المستحق للإمامة. And Ali was the one who deserved the ruler, who was qualified, who was entitled to the rulership. فامتنعوا عن بيعته. But they refused to pay allegiance to him. Not for a real just cause, though. Whatever justification they gave was just ulterior motive. They wanted rulership. وحكي أن معاوية كان يؤول معنى الحديث. And it was cited or reported that Muawiyah used to misinterpret this hadith. So I'm translating that as misinterpret, which that's the case here. But someone might say, أن معاوية كان يؤول معنى الحديث, that Muawiyah used to interpret the hadith in a different way. ويقول, and he says, نحن فئة باغية طالبة لدم عثمان. We are a group that is baghiyah, that is taliba, a group seeking something. We're looking for something. Talibatun lidami Uthman. We are a group seeking to avenge the blood of Uthman. So they're saying, this is how he's interpreting the meaning of the hadith. It's as if he's saying, We are the fi'a baghiyah. But what that actually means is we want to avenge the blood of Uthman. وَهَذَا كَمَا تَرَى تَحْرِيف. And this is, as you can see, perversion. It's not Sheikh Abdullah's words there. إِذْ مَعْنَا طَلَبِ الدَّمِ غَيْرُ مُنَاسِبٍ هُنَا. Since the meaning of avenging someone's blood is irrelevant here. لأنه صلى الله عليه وسلم ذكر الحديث في إظهار فضيلة عمار. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned this hadith in exposing or demonstrating, displaying the merits of Ammar, وَذَمِّ قَاتِلِهِ, and in exposing or demonstrating the blame of whoever kills him. Yani, this is the real meaning of the hadith, or the real context of the hadith. This hadith has in it praise for Ammar and blame for who kills him. So it's like Muawiyah's interpretation of the hadith is removing the element of blame, saying where Baghiya meaning Talibah. لأنه جاء في طريق ويه. And what proves that this is for showing the merit of Ammar and the blame of his killer is that the hadith came by way of the word way. I translated it as woe. قلت ويح كلمة تقال لمن وقع في هلكة. I say ويح is a word said for someone who has fallen into doom. في هلكة لا يستحقها. Fallen into doom that he does not deserve. فيترحم عليه. And so he would be pitied. ويرثى له, and eulogized. بخلاف wail, as opposed to that word wail that we might also translate as woe. فإنها كلمة عقوبة. Indeed, that is a word for punishment or chastisement. تقال للذي يستحقها. It would be said for someone who deserves that chastisement. ولا يترحم عليه. And there would be no pity for him. هذا. So take that. وفي الجامع الصغير برواية الإمام أحمد والبخاري عن أبي سعيد مرفوعا. And furthermore, it is documented in Al-Jami' al-Saghir, according to Imam Ahmad's rendition of the hadith, and Al-Bukhari's, from the route of Abu Sa'id, elevated up to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Wayha Ammar, woe is Ammar, تقتله الفئة الباغية, the transgressing group shall kill him. يدعوهم إلى الجنة ويدعونه إلى النار. He calls them to the garden, and they call him to the fire. So just a reminder for you, this part of the hadith is in Al-Bukhari. In a futile attempt to lighten the refutation against himself, someone who says the wrong thing in this judgment will, as we mentioned before, he will take issue with this part of the hadith. He calls them to the garden and they call him to the fire. So, without going into anything, this is in the hadith. It's in Bukhari, even if it wasn't in the copy of every scholar. وهذا كالنص الصريح في المعنى الصحيح. And so this is like an explicit documentation about the correct meaning. في المعنى الصحيح المتبادر من البغي المطلق في الكتاب. The correct meaning that immediately comes to mind from the word baghi when it is used in an absolute sense, or in an unrestricted or an unqualified sense in the book. كما في قوله تعالى, like in the saying of God Almighty, وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي, and Allah forbids the atrocities, al-fahsha, and the objectionable, al-munkar, and al-baghi, the transgression. يَعِظُكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ. Allah admonishes you so that perhaps you would take heed. وَقَوْلِهِ سُبْحَانَهُ, and also in this ayah, that one I just recited for you was Surat An-Nahl, ayah 90. And this ayah that we recited before, فَإِن بَغَتْ إِحْدَاهُمَا عَلَى الْأُخْرَى, if one of those two groups, Muslim groups, transgresses, baghat, transgressed against the other, etc. That's the 9th ayah of Surah Al-Hujurat. فإطلاق اللفظ الشرعي على إرادة المعنى اللغوي عدول عن العدل. And so, the absolute usage, the absolute religious usage, the unrestricted or unqualified religious usage of baghi, yani, when the word baghi comes in religion and it doesn't have a qualifier to say that it means something other than what comes to mind in a religious context, such as to say, baghi here is the mere linguistic meaning of looking for something. Baghi in this religious context, in such and such ayah or such and such hadith, that doesn't have a qualifier, it means just some mere looking for something according to the language. Udulun anil adl, that is diverging from justice, from right. That's going away from being right. That's being wrong. وَمَيْلٌ إِلَى الظُّلْمِ, and that's an inclination to injustice, to say that. That's a low down dirty trick. الَّذِي هُوَ وَضْعُ الشَّيْءِ فِي غَيْرِ مَوْضِعِهِ. Zulm, injustice, which means mishandling things, putting things in the wrong place. والحاصل أن البغي بحسب المعنى الشرعي والإطلاق العرفي خصص عموم معنى الطلب اللغوي. And so the synopsis is that baghi, according to the religious meaning and the normal open usage of it, unrestricted or absolute usage of it, limits the generality of the linguistic meaning. إلى طلب الشرع الخاص بالخروج المنهي. Yani, it would be limited to meaning, if it means seeking, in the religious context, means seeking to go out of bounds, seeking the evil that is particular to the forbidden rebellion, the forbidden mutiny. It is seeking mutiny, the forbidden mutiny. فلا يصح أن يراد به طلب دم خليفة الزمان. It's not valid that what would be meant by that word baghi when said in an open religious context, that its meaning would be seeking to avenge the blood of the caliph of the time. It doesn't mean seeking to avenge the blood of the caliph of the time, which happens to have been Uthman then. That's not the meaning of baghi, seeking to avenge the blood of the caliph of the time. So that's a misinterpretation. وَقَدْ حُكِيَ عَنْ مُعَاوِيَةَ تَأْوِيلٌ أَقْبَحُ مِنْ هَذَا. In fact, a misinterpretation uglier than this one is reported about Muawiyah. حيث قال, where it is that he said, إِنَّمَا قَتَلَهُ عَلِيٌّ وَفِئَتُهُ. Ammar's killers are Ali and his group. So that's a ta'wil, that's a misinterpretation of the hadith that he knows, the hadith we're talking about. And you can call that an ijtihad. That's an ijtihad. That's bad though. It's wrong. It's haram. So one of the important things to know in this subject is that You have to broaden your understanding of the word ijtihad. If the only thing that comes to your mind from ijtihad is what the mujtahids do, the mujtahids of the madhabs, then you need in your scope of the word ijtihad. You said, doesn't he know the right way though? Yeah, he does know that. He's not making this misinterpretation by mistake. He knows that. If somebody understands what's going on here, then it's clear he knows that very well. Yani, to say less would not be befitting of him. To think that he doesn't know what's right here wouldn't even be befitting of his knowledge and his intelligence. Subhanallah. Sometimes I, I found this personally, as seems to be the case. Sometimes when you're dealing with a person, it's a matter of, yani, if you want to think the best of the person, it would be a matter of that the person he knows what he's doing is wrong. Because if he didn't know what he was doing was wrong, then you'd have to think that he was stupid. And that's where some people will deceive you too, brothers and sisters, which is that we're supposed to think well of the Muslim. So some people, they manipulate you because you always want to think best of the Muslim. And so they really will play you for a fool. Well, they know what they're doing actually, and they're Muslims. And if you were to get fed up and say, hey, I think you're pulling my leg here. I got the feeling you might be taking me for a ride here. He's going to say, oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to give you that impression. What? What? I didn't, what? So don't fall for that. So, وحكي عن معاوية تأويل أقبح من هذا. It was reported about Muawiyah, a misinterpretation uglier than this, uglier than explaining Baghi that way. حيث قال إنما قتله علي وفئته, where he said that Ammar's killers are Ali and his group. حيث حمله على القتال, because he's the one who told him to go out and fight. وصار سببا لقتله في المآل, and so he became the reason for him to be killed in the end. Had he not told him to go out and fight, he wouldn't have been killed. That's a misinterpretation of the hadith. فَقِيلَ لَهُ فِي الْجَوَابِ, and so the answer was said, which is Ali said the answer. فَإِذًا قَاتِلُ حَمْزَةَ هُوَ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم. That, if that's the case, Hamza's killer is the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. حيث كان باعثا له على ذلك, since he was the one who was in charge, and he sent his uncle Hamza out as one of his fighters. والله سبحانه وتعالى حيث أمر المؤمنين بقتال المشركين. And that argument would even then extend to God himself, since he's the one who commanded the believers to go out and fight the pagans. So that's misinterpretation. والحاصل أن هذا الحديث فيه معجزات ثلاث. And the summary is that this hadith contains three miracles. إحداها أنه سيقتل. One of them is that he will be killed. وثانيها أنه مظلوم. And the second is that he was wronged. وثالثها أن قاتله باغ من البغاة. And the third is that his killer is a mutineer. وَالْكُلُّ صِدْقٌ وَحَقٌّ. And all of that happened accurately. انتهى, end quote. ثم قال, and then he said, قلت فإذا كان الواجب عليه قلت فإذا كان الواجب عليه أن يرجع عن بغيه بإطاعته الخليفة. So then Sheikh Mullah Ali al-Qari said, I say, therefore, what was obligatory on him was to desist his mutiny by obedience to the Caliph. وَيَتْرُكَ الْمُخَالَفَةِ وَطَلَبَ الْخِلَافَةِ الْمُنِيفَةِ. And it was obligatory on him to abstain from opposition and to abstain from seeking the caliphate. فتبين بهذا أنه كان في الباطن باغيا. This is not the words of Sheikh Abdullah. What did Sheikh Mullah Ali al-Qari say about Muawiyah? He said, so it became clear by this that he was inwardly a transgressor. وفي الظاهر متسترا بدم عثمان. But outwardly he was justifying his actions by claiming that he was seeking to avenge the blood of Uthman. So very literal translation. وفي الظاهر متسترا بدم عثمان. And openly he was veiling by the blood of Uthman. مراعيا مرائيا. Mura'i, not sure what that means. Mura'iyan, he's saying insincerely. It was just a front. It wasn't really what he wanted. فَجَاءَ هَذَا الْحَدِيثُ عَلَيْهِ نَاعِيًا. And so this hadith came against him like a eulogy. وَعَنْ عَمَلِهِ نَاهِيًا. And this hadith came forbidding him from what he was doing. MashaAllah. May Allah have mercy on Shaykh Mullah Ali al-Qari. Ameen. لكن كان ذلك في الكتاب مسطورا. However, that was in the record, the guarded tablet probably means here recorded. يعني it was destiny. And it says a statement here. فرحم الله من أنصف ولم يتعصب ولم يتعصب. As if Mullah Ali al-Qari talked to the people that we talk to here in this issue. How he's talking here. He said, so may Allah have mercy on someone who is honest, who is objective, and is not a bigot here. That means just going to be stubborn and stick to saying what he's saying in defense of Muawiyah. وَلَمْ يَتَعَسَّفْ. And he doesn't exaggerate in what he's doing. He's going the wrong way. He's going too far. وَتَوَلَّ لِقْتِصَادَ فِي الْإِعْتِقَادِ. يعني he managed his convictions well. That's a very loose translation there. He managed his convictions well. Very important too, really, because what these people aren't, I think, really afraid for is that a wrong conviction is going to creep into their heart about something, even if it's not kufr. Remember, the Sunni Muslim, if he does go to hell, he doesn't go to hell for his aqidah. It's the deviant groups that are punished for their aqidah. Sunni Muslim, if he's punished for his behavior, and Allah might forgive him. The deviant ones, Allah will punish them for their bad aqidah. Well, what kind of bad aqidah are we talking about here? Well, look at where some people are dancing, talking about a valid ijtihad to fight the caliph because of being companion. So this is not right here. You don't want to have something wrong in your aqidah, even if it didn't make you a kafir. Not, I'm saying, because maybe a person's not understanding something. That's why I'm saying, even if it did make him a kafir here, maybe something's not connecting, but still there, doesn't realize his mistake. For the aqidah, you need to make sure your creed is clean, have correct aqidah. Then you learn about the obligations and the sins. So you do your obligations validly and don't miss them and do them on time. And you avoid the sins and you know what they are. And if you don't know what the sin is, you're still going to fall into it if you do it. Even if it's a sin of the heart. Here, this is what we're talking about here. Person being sinful for something that he's believing, at the least, even if he's not a kafir. So, Mullah Ali al-Qari has good advice here, and he made dua. So if you're one of those listening here, here's dua of Mullah Ali al-Qari for you. Rahim Allahu man ansaf. May Allah have mercy on whoever is objective here, who's honest. Walam yata'assab. And he was not a bigot here. He accepted the proofs. Don't turn away from some proof because you don't like the sheikh. It doesn't matter about the sheikh or not. It's about the truth. وَلَمْ يَتَعَسَّفْ. And he didn't exaggerate here and go too far because that's what they're doing with all this. How they're explaining Baghi. How they're explaining who's the killer of Ammar and other things. how they're explaining somebody made it ijtihad, etc. وتولى الاقتصاد في الاعتقاد. He managed his convictions لئلا يقع في جانبي سبيل الرشاد, so that he would not fall out of bounds of the right path on either side. Does he have a straight path, a straight way, right way? Just go straight, doesn't turn. It's not crooked. من الرفض والنصب, so that he won't be on the side of those Shiites, and so that he won't be on the side of those who fight the house of Ali. بأن يحب جميع الآل والصحب, by loving all of the family of the Prophet and the companions. انتهى. End quote. وقال المناوي في شرح الجامع الصغير. Al-Munawi said in the explanation of Al-Jami' al-Saghir, ما نصه, quote, he's explaining the hadith, وَيْحَ Ammar, woe is Ammar ibn Yasir. Ammar is the son of Yasir. تَقْتُلُهُ الْفِئَةُ الْبَاغِيَةُ, the transgressing group shall kill him. قال البيضاوي, Al-Baydawi said, يُرِيدُ بِهِ مُعَاوِيَةَ وَقَوْمَهُ, the Prophet means by that Muawiyah and his people. Yuridu, that goes back to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Yad'uuhum ila al-jannah, he calls them to the garden. Ila sababiha, meaning to what results in that. وَهُوَ طَاعَةُ الْإِمَامِ الْحَقِّ, which is obedience to the rightful Imam. وَيَدْعُونَهُ إِلَى سَبَبِ النَّارِ, and they call him to what results in hell. وَهُوَ عِصْيَانُهُ وَمُقَاتَلَتُهُ, which is disobeying the caliph, yani staging a coup and fighting him. وَقَدْ وَقَعَ ذَلِكَ يَوْمَ السِّفِّينَ, and that happened on the day of Siffin, yani the prophecy came true. دعاهم فيه إلى الإمام ودعوه إلى النار وقتلوه. On that day, he called them to follow the Imam, and they called him to hell and killed him. انتهى. End quote. وقال في موضع آخر من شرحه على الجامع الصغير ما نصه. And he said in another spot of his explanation for Al-Jami' al-Saghir, quote, وَيْحَ Ammar, woe is Ammar بالجر على الإضافة. Ammar, it's genitive, يعني عمار كسرة, by making those two words compound in a genitive construction. وَيْحَ عَمَّارٍ وَهُوَ ابْنُ يَاسِرٍ, and this Ammar is the son of Yasir. تَقْتُلُهُ الْفِئَةُ الْبَاغِيَةُ, the transgressing group shall kill him. قال القاضي في شرح المصابيح, the judge said in the explanation of Al-Masabih, يريد به معاوية وقومه, by it the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam means Muawiyah and his people. Intaha. End quote. Yani, that's the end of the quote of the judge that he just cited. He's still talking. وهذا صريح في بغي طائفة معاوية الذين قتلوا عمارا, and this is explicit in the transgression of the group of Muawiyah, those who killed Ammar, في وقعة Siffin, in the incident of Siffin, وأن الحق مع علي, and that the truth was with Ali. وهو من الإخبار بالمغيبات, and this is a prophecy. يدعوهم, he calls them, أي عمار يدعو الفئة وهم أصحاب معاوية الذين قتلوه بوقعة السفين في الزمان المستقبل. He calls them, meaning Ammar, he calls the group. That group is Muawiyah's party, or his associates, his cohorts, ashabuhu, his companions, those who killed Ammar in the incident of Siffin later in the future. إلى الجنة أي إلى سببها, to the garden he calls them, meaning he calls them to do what would result in them going to heaven, which is to fight with the Imam. وهو طاعة الإمام الحق, which is obedience to the rightful Imam. ويدعونه إلى سبب النار, and they call him to what results in the fire. وهو عصيانه ومقاتلته, which is mutiny and staging a coup. قالوا وقد وقع ذلك في يوم صفين. They said this happened, the prophecy came true on the day of Siffin. دعاهم فيه إلى الإمام الحق. On that day, Ammar called them to obedience to the rightful Imam. ودعوه إلى النار وقتلوه. And they called him to the fire and they killed him. فهو معجزة للمصطفى وعلم من أعلام نبوته. And so that is a miracle of the selected one, and it is one of the signs of his prophethood. انتهى. End quote. وقال المناوي بعد ذلك ما نصه. Then Al-Munawi after that said, quote, تتمة, epilogue, يعني some final words or completion of the case. في الروض الأنف أن رجلا قال لعمر رضي الله تعالى عنه. It is recorded in the book الروض الأنف that a man said to Umar رضي الله عنه, so this is before the fighting, before Uthman was killed, because Umar was alive here in this story. So then a man said to Umar رضي الله تعالى عنه, may Allah accept from him, رأيت الليلة كأن الشمس والقمر يقتتلان. He said, I saw in my dream as if the sun and the moon were fighting. ومع كل النجوم, and each one had stars on its side. قال عمر. Umar said, مع أيهما أنت? Which side were you on? قال مع القمر. He said, I was on the moon's side. قال. So Umar said to him, كنت مع الآية الممحوة. You were with the erased sign. You were with the erased sign, يعني the sign of the nighttime. اذهب ولا تعمل لي عملا أبدا. Go, you're fired. Don't work for me ever again. فعزله. So he removed him. فقتل يوم الصفين مع معاوية. This man on the day of Siffin fought with Muawiyah. واسمه حابس بن سعد. And his name is Habis, the son of Sa'd. وقال مفتي بيروت الشيخ عبد الباسط الفاخوري. And the Mufti of Beirut, Sheikh Abdul Basit al-Fakhuri, said, ما نصه, quote, على أن معشر أهل الحق من أهل السنة والجماعة يعتقدون أن معاوية كان مخطئا. He said, يعني, he has some talk he was saying. So dot, 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 we're picking up something from what he was saying. Keeping in mind that the assembly of the people of the truth, from the people of the prophetic way, and the majority of Muslims, their conviction is that Muawiyah was mistaken, mukhti'an. So for the people who say the wrong thing here, they say, yes, he was mukhti', but they're saying this is not the khata that's bad. This is khata where he still gets a reward. He made ijtihad and he got reward. What did Sheikh Abdul Basit say here? بغى على الإمام الحق علي ibn Abi Talib. He rebelled, mutinied, transgressed against the true Imam, Ali ibn Abi Talib, لسبق البيعة والخلافة له رضي الله لسبق البيعة والخلافة له رضي الله عنه, because the rulership got to him. وهو مصيب بمحاربة معاوية وأصحابه, and he is correct for waging war against Muawiyah and his companions. That means that was haram. It's not rewardable ijtihad. You don't wage war against a rewardable ijtihad. That's part of how I don't understand how those people put those together. Seems to me they would be aware of their own stubbornness here. To say they got a reward for the ijtihad. Okay, so how's somebody gonna fight them and kill them for that? And he got reward too. بحكم قتال أهل البغي من المسلمين, under the judgment of, he was correct. According to what? Under the judgment of fighting the people of transgression, the Muslim people of transgression. ولذا لم يعاملهم معاملة المرتدين ولا الكافرين. This is why he did not treat them as apostates or blasphemers. وأن عائشة وطلحة والزبير رضي الله عنهم قد رجعوا عن خطئهم. And those Muslims, the assembly of the people of the truth, they believe that Aisha and Talha and Az-Zubayr, may Allah accept from them, retracted their mistake. They retracted that. Like we said, if they retracted that, why would someone still be championing that? Yani, they thought they were doing something right. Okay, but they retracted that when it became clear for them that it was not right in any way whatsoever, actually. So they retracted that. So why would somebody else say, no, this was a rewardable ijtihad on their part? He's not even arguing the argument of the person involved. قد رجعوا عن خطئهم بخروجهم متأسفين. They retracted their mistake of rebelling regretfully. They were regretful that they were mistaken. وَالنَّدَمُ تَوْبَةٌ مِنَ الْخَطِيئَةِ, and the remorse is repentance from the sin, saying they're sinful. They were sinful. He's saying they were sinful. They repented. That's not Sheikh Abdullah saying that. فَاتَّبِعِ الْحَقَّ وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى. So follow the truth and do not follow the desire. فَيُضِلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, because the desire will take you off of God's way. Wallahu a'lam.